And now on Motors.co.uk, it's time for something completely different. This is the Ami, that's A-M-I, and it's a vehicle from Citroen which they say should free up space in city centres and provide a mode of transport for those who perhaps don't want to own a car and want a slightly drier, more comfortable proposition than an e-bike or an electric scooter. Now this isn't available in the UK just yet. It's already seeing some use in France, however, and Citroen is testing the waters to see if the Ami does have a real-world application here in Britain. Now, we've been given the chance to get behind the wheel for a very short test, so before anything else, let's get behind the wheel and find out what it's like. The Ami doesn't have an interior as such, it's more just a space. It's got a slightly black cab-ish feeling to it. You've got a small display ahead of you which shows you your speed and your range. The selectors for the drive are down to the side of you, manual handbrake, and realistically, that's about it. Everything's made out of this really heavy-duty rubber and plastic. This is meant to deal with city living after all. So that space there is for your luggage. This is obviously for your passenger. There's a good amount of space up front for other odds and ends that you could take around with you. But it's mainly dominated by how much glass there is in here. You've got a huge roof lining, which is all transparent. Glass behind you, glass to the side. It's a really airy cabin. It does feel a little bit like one of those cable car gondolas. That's the only way I could describe it, that you happen to be able to drive on the road. First impressions, it's very loud. There's not much insulation in here, and obviously you've got a huge airy cabin which is just letting all the noises of the powertrain and the road and the tyres just rattle around the cabin. So it's not quiet. It's quite a lot of regen, so when you lift off, the car's slowing down. These seats are almost heroically firm. But it should be pointed out that this is a car which is being pitched, in France at least, as a mobility solution to be seen alongside electric scooters and small quadricycles. This is effectively what this is classed as in France. So it's not a car. You can't judge it as a car because, well, it isn't one. It can't in any way, shape or form match the kind of range that you get from an electric car that's on sale today. This is more for using in cities and in urban environments as a way of getting around in a thing that has doors and a roof and protects you from the weather, which in the UK is, well, it's very handy, isn't it? The steering is actually quite heavy, but you've got a good sense of what the front wheels are doing. It picks up speed quite briskly, but obviously you're getting a lot of motor noise to accompanying it. Now, there are a lot of jokes put towards electric cars when they first came out. They were just like milk floats. Now, this car does feel closer in relation to a milk float than an electric car that would be on sale today. However, it is tiny. It's really small on the road. That means that if you are going to be nipping in and out of parking spaces and you are going to be trying to dart in between traffic and in between other cars, this could prove, well, quite useful. Certainly against an electric scooter or an e-bike, this is going to feel far more comfortable and far more pleasant on a cold winter's day. It's not what you'd call refined. It really doesn't have any sound insulation whatsoever. But that said, you're pottering along, you're doing, well, nearly 30 miles an hour. And that feels realistically about as happy as it gets. That's a solid 30 miles an hour, and that's foot to the floor. So this isn't going to be for dual carriageways, this isn't going to be for motorways. Realistically, this car isn't going to be much quicker than a tractor, but it's not where it's designed for. It's designed, as we've said, for little city streets and for reducing emissions in town, which I'd say it would do quite successfully actually. As I mentioned earlier, Citroen is currently in the process of gauging interest in the UK as to whether or not this Ami would have any real application. And personally, I think that it's not for consumers. Personally, I don't think it's for consumers to decide, but for perhaps councils or government to see whether these sorts of cars could be used in urban environments where they'd clear up traffic. Hello. They'd clear up traffic numbers while also giving people an ability to still get around. As we found with a lot of electric cars, there's a real zip off the line, but the Ami doesn't have that. It doesn't have that zip off the line. It just moves forward quite progressively. The accelerator pedal is quite responsive to your inputs, and because of that regen, you don't really have to worry about using the brakes whatsoever. You can just lift off and it just slows itself down. It does feel a bit like you're driving, well, a very big children's toy. But I think that's quite exciting. I'd like to do that. If you could travel into a city, get the train, and then for the last mile or so, take one of these and park up and not have to worry about spaces or fueling or anything at all, really. I guess in the UK you just don't see cars of this size on the road anyway. In France, quadricycles are quite popular, so they're very little cars that have small motorbike engines, and people use them in cities where parking is at a premium. So I feel like there the Ami might not seem quite so staggeringly different. But here in the UK, you just don't get a car of this size. So yeah, there we have it, Citroen's Ami. It's certainly it's a unique proposition. Certainly for private owners, I can't see this being too attractive, but as a mode of transport for inner city areas and urban environments rivaling the likes of electric scooters and e-bikes as well, I can see the Ami being really popular. Let's just hope that people in the UK think the same and start introducing these in cities across the country.